Hey everyone. A few weeks ago, Josh had an interview with Cardinals top prospect Victor Scott II, and we wanted to share it with our viewers here at Newt News. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to another episode of Redbird Rundown. I'm your host, Josh Jacobs, site expert over at Redbird Rants, and I'm joined today, very excited to be joined by Victor Scott II, an outfielder within the Cardinals organization. If you haven't heard of Victor already, you're going to be hearing of his name a lot over the next few months and years. Victor was drafted in the fifth round of the 2022 MLB Draft and has already risen up to the AA level at Springfield. Across Peoria and Springfield this year, he's slashing 298, 372, 410 with a 782 OPS, 4 home runs, 12 doubles, 9 triples, 43 RBIs, 68 stolen bases, which I know we'll get into that as we go. 65 runs scored, and he's been better at the AA level this year, actually, with a 124 WRC plus. So starting off, Victor, I'd love to just talk about your journey as a Cardinal so far. You've only been in the organization for a little bit over a year, and you're already tearing up AA. So what has this journey been like so far?
To kind of put it into words, this journey's been unreal, almost surreal. It's kind of like the only thing I can put it as. I know it took a lot to get here for sure, though. It took a lot of people to help me get here. But to kind of put it all like in the pro ball, like well, especially coming from West Virginia, and getting drafted, that was an incredible feeling. I had my girlfriend there, my mom and my dad there at the time, so it was pretty cool to share that moment with them. Got drafted, and then like the next 3 days, they sent us to the complex in Palm Beach. So we practiced for about a week, and then hopped into games with Palm Beach. So that whole process was fun, kind of getting your first taste of pro ball, getting your feet wet. So that's pretty cool. So those guys who are now in that beginning of that journey, just I would just tell them that this part goes kind of fast, and then before you know it, you're gonna be back at home during the off season. But I know for me, the off season was like the biggest point of like work emphasis for me. So I went to a few camps, two camps in the off season, one in October and then one in December, and got with Russ Steinhorn, which is the hitting coordinator now, and then Daniel, which is he's like on the big league side now, and then um, looked a lot of like blast motion information, and kind of just took it from there. And then they gave me pieces to work on and how the swing should look and how it should feel and what my goal needs to be as a leadoff guy. So I kind of took that just on like as like a homework. It's like almost like they gave me homework as like I was at school. So I went back home and then just worked continuously on just trying to be that leadoff guy and to try to really, you know, work on my skills. So coming out of the off season, I then go to a step camp at the beginning or like in spring training. So it's like a group of guys who get there not when the big leaguers or not like the big league camp invitees go, but it's like a week after that. So you almost kind of get more like hands-on work for like the next like 2 weeks or so. And then that's when everyone else comes into camp. So that was a pretty cool feeling. I've never seen like that, or I've seen that many people like in one setting, but that many like really, really good players in one setting, in one organization was pretty cool to see everybody running around in Cardinals uniforms, like with their pants on the practice field, playing games, playing inter squads, getting live ABs, doing work with like Cheo or Luddy. So seeing that was super special to me. And then kind of getting invited to like the big league games was, I remember like the first time I got the text like that I was gonna go play in one. Um, it almost felt like I was getting like the big league call. Like
Hmm.
I don't know how that feeling feels yet, of course, but if I had to guess, it would feel something like that. So
Yeah.
um man, that was super interesting, man, because you're there with all like the big leaguers and you kind of feel like you're a part of like what they have going on. So that was pretty cool just to be on the bench in the big league spring training game, and then also getting to talk to Willie McGee. I did that a lot. Kind of just sat there and talked to him about outfielding, about being a leadoff guy, about being a speed guy. So picked his brain about a lot of that thing, a lot of those aspects of the game. And then I remember it was like my first time getting in the game, and then the bench coach came up to me. He was like, "Hey, Victor, you're going in for I think he said like O'Neal, and I was like, yeah, this is crazy. I was sitting there like really trying to wrap my head because I mean I'm eating seeds, I'm chewing bubble gum. I'm just trying to feel like a big leaguer at this point because I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is a crazy opportunity. So I'm just gonna try to soak it in as much as I can. And then he told me I was going in. I was like, oh wow, this is really happening. So I can't remember what I did in my first game, but I do know I ended up starting like one of those games like further in that week, and I ended up going like 1 for 2 with 2 walks, and seeing like Ollie there, like after I scored, like giving me a fist pound, and that was crazy, just a crazy
Yeah.
experience. And then kind of jumping into like the season, going to Peoria. I was told that like at the end of spring training, but man, Peoria was a cool place. It was cold at first, but I mean that's to be expected. It's Illinois, so
Yeah, I'm
um,
from Bloomington, so
oh,
there you go.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then I played at West Virginia, so it's not like I wasn't used to playing in cold weather. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I picked up a lot of things from PA and Casey Chenoweth, and then made some pretty cool relationships with like those teammates like Jimmy Crooks and Nathan Church. Got to hang around those guys a lot, and Cooper Jerpy
Mm.
were all my roommates, and they actually taught me how to fish, like using different like techniques of how to catch like different fish. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But so then in the same week that I got called up to Double A, I got called for the Futures game.
Yes.
So we were playing the Quad City River Bandits in Davenport, Iowa, and I remember I was like really struggling this week for some reason. So I
Mm.
think a guy was kind of putting me through like the little like the mental ringer and like there's other
Mm.
things at the end of this tunnel. But man, it's like I was struggling, and then I came in the next day on Wednesday, and then I was told I was going to the Futures game. So like that was I was already trying to wrap my head around that, calling my mom, a lot of people who got me there. I was calling
Yeah.
everybody, but trying to do in like a short time span because I had to get back on the field for practice and BP and whatnot. And then so hearing that news, kind of continued playing throughout the week. Was kind of like scuffling still, just wasn't really seeing it well against them. And then at the end of the trip, I'm walking down the tunnel, and Patrick Anderson, PA, he's walking with me, and I'm like, man, PA, it's been a really rough week for me, man. Like, I was like,
Mm.
I haven't struggled this much, like since I've been here. Like in a week, I haven't struggled like this. I was like, man, it's been difficult. And he was like, yeah, you just got to keep going. And then he calls me into the office, and then Russ is in there, and then sure enough, they tell me I was going up to Double A next week. So we had like 2 days off, and then I flew to Missouri, Springfield, and then that's when we went to Arkansas to go play the Travelers. So that was my first Double A experience. Double A has been quite the experience. It's been fun, man. Seeing everybody compete at a high level is always kind of like what I imagined. Of
Yeah.
course, this is not like where the train stops, but the goal is to, of course, get to the big leagues. But yeah, it's definitely cool to see how everybody kind of goes about their business and professionally, just trying to kind of grow their game and develop as like their player, and then how that all comes into like a team aspect. So it's definitely been quite an experience, and that's all I can kind of say about it. It's been really fun for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, before I want to jump more into the futures game and that experience for you, but I've got a couple of more fun questions we want to start off with. So I'm from around Peoria, and then one of our writers is from around Springfield. So we were wondering, what are your favorite places to eat? Or if you had to pick one spot in Peoria and Springfield, where would you be going?
Okay, so Peoria, let's see, I always like cooked for myself, and then the team provided meals. But when I
Okay.
did go eat, I was just kind of basic. I just went to IHOP, man. I didn't really like go to anywhere super special, or like go really tour the town. I know I did
Okay.
fish a lot in Peoria, so I did
Yeah.
that a lot, and then I also like to bowl, so I bowled a
Nice.
lot in Peoria. But other than like with the eating spots, I didn't really find anywhere or discover anywhere like that was super good. I just
Okay.
kind of went to like the common spots. In Springfield, I would say either First Watch or the Big Biscuit is like the two places I've been for like breakfast on an off day,
Okay.
which are they're really good spots. So yeah,
Yeah. So big breakfast guy then. I could tell IHOP and then the breakfast spots. I like it.
yeah, love
So you
breakfast for sure.
mentioned fishing and bowling. So are those two things you like to do outside of baseball, or is there anything else you would say that's kind of like if you got away from the game for a day, this is what you'd be doing?
Yeah, actually I have three pretty prominent hobbies. So one of which would be I like to make music. I'm
Nice.
actually like a or I like rap, so everything like I put on is like on like Apple Music or Spotify.
Okay, where can we find you on there? Just Victor
So
Scott the
if you
second.
type in like Argo, ARGO, and then like Right My Wrongs, then that's like the latest album I dropped. So
Okay.
it's on there. Pretty cool thing that I kind of do like in my off time.
Yeah.
Even like on bus trips, like I'll kind of just like sit there and like listen to a beat and kind of like make a song for when I go back home, and I'll end up probably pushing that out too. Um, let's see, bowling. Bowling I actually worked at a bowling alley in the off season, so to
Okay.
make a little extra income. I know a lot of guys like they train kids, like they'll do that for income, but I was doing that as well as working at a bowling alley. So I would work there for 5 days a week for about 8 hours, and then
Okay.
it's kind of like kind of just grew on me because I always kind of worked there when I was little. Like my dad
Mm,
was a security guard. He's a retired police officer now, so he will
mm.
go there for like an extra job, his extra money. So I would go and basically just work there with him as he would be doing his security job. And then kind of coming back from the off season, I was like, man, I need an extra, source of income. So I worked at
Mm.
a bowling alley, and then after hours, I would just sit there and bowl and just kind of picked up
Yeah.
really on how to on how to spin it and looking at the boards and looking at oil patterns. It's just became pretty fun for me. And then the third hobby, fishing, I literally just picked up when I was in Peoria
Okay.
because Nathan Church and Jimmy and Cooper, super big fishermen. And one day they
Mm.
all went to Bass Pro Shop and they're like, Vic, you want to come? And I was like, man, I'm from the city. I was like, I like to bowl, play basketball. I was like, I'm from the city. And they were like, man, come man, get a fishing pole, man. I was like, all right, I get a fishing pole. And then I ended up going out there, and then church was teaching me like different, like how to cast and not just cast it and reel it in quick, but like how to make the lure look real. So that became like pretty interesting to me. And then I started getting hooked onto it literally. So
Yeah,
it became pretty fun.
that's awesome. All right, one more for you before we jump into more of the futures game stuff. Who are like some players that you watched or tried to emulate your game after growing up?
So Andrew McCutcheon was like my biggest idol growing up, him and Starlin
Yeah.
Marte. So my dad, he's from Pittsburgh,
Okay.
and like that kind of like led me to be like a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, although I was like still like an Atlanta Braves fan. But
Hmm.
I always just watched Andrew McCutcheon because he was like their center fielder back in the day. So
Yeah.
I just sat there and just watched what he did every time he came on TV. And then I had like the chance to, I don't know if he knew who I was, but I was at like an all-star game when I was in high school. I think I was probably like in the 10th grade. And they were playing, Pittsburgh was playing the Braves. And I was able to like see him on the field in person. And I was like, man, like, I don't know if you know, but I really like the way you play. And I'm trying to be you when I grow up. So yeah, so those are two guys who I looked at a lot.
Well, that's awesome. Those are two great players to be watching for sure. So you talked a little bit about the call and what it was like to hear that you're going to the Futures game. What was that experience like being there and playing in the game?
So to kind of put the futures game into words, it's a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of super good players in one spot.
Hmm.
Like, and then it's 25,000 or 30,000 fans there. So I've never played in front of that many people, and I've never been around that many prospects. So it was kind of crazy to see how like different prospects interact with the media and like how they interact with fans and with signing things and autographing things. So it was just kind of cool to all take in. I was just trying to be as kind of mindful in that moment as possible, just try to take pictures and just kind of being there in that moment because I knew as soon as I got on that plane back to Atlanta, I was going to be like, what in the world just happened?
Yeah.
Like, what just happened? So, I know we flew in and they had like a lot of festivities for us. Kind of like at the hotel where like Baseball America was there.
Hmm.
Podcast was there. I know like MLB, like social media team was there. We had like photo shoots. They had like it all laid out. So they really made you feel like a superstar. And then plus other people walking around and you're seeing like agents and advisors and
Hmm.
seeing just a whole bunch of different companies. Like it's just a lot going on. So um And then I also had the opportunity to be like a part in the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So
Hmm.
it was me, Ryan Bliss, and Kyron Paris who were able to go be a part of that. So I thought that was pretty special. Kind of being able to talk to those kids and kind of figuring out like their situations and how like they're overcoming their situations,
Hmm.
which is always super good that they have like a strong mindset because it just tells you, maybe it's not as bad as it seems some days because other people could be in a worse situation than
Hmm.
like we are. So um, I know and then the game was awesome. We got to the field, talking to like Harold Reynolds. I always mess up his last name. Reynolds. Um, talking to him where he was like kind of giving us a presentation, and then um, Raul Abanez, I want to say is
Yeah.
our coach, and then like seeing like Adrian Beltre, he was in there. Like King Griffey Jr. was there. So seeing like those guys like in the dugout and being able to like interact with them was amazing. And then kind of just seeing how every like prospect kind of held themselves within like the moment was pretty cool too. Because I know like with those moments is it's a big thing. It's like it's a big deal. So kind of seeing how everybody composed themselves and maintain like their breath and kind of just went about their day as if it was like normal, although
Hmm.
it's definitely a big circumstance. So I know like in the game, I was told I was getting in for I was going to hit for Pete Crow Armstrong, which is, he just got moved up to the Cubs AAA team. But I was told I was getting in for him and I was going to hit for him. So I kind of just like I was just sitting there chilling at first, and it was like the fifth inning, and then I was like, all right, I need to get going because I'm about to get in the game, and I don't want it to feel like I'm rushed or anything. Like I'm
Hmm.
trying to make this as normal as possible. So like I never really like turned around and like looked into the stands because I was just like I need to be like tunnel vision on the goal at hand.
Yeah.
And then I remember facing a guy from the Twins, threw me a I think he threw me a changeup to start it off, and then he went like threw me a fastball. That's the pitch I hit. And then I told myself I was like the only way I'm going to make a stamp on who my name is by stealing, if not one but two bases. That's the only way I'm going to do it. So
Hmm.
um, definitely with God's gift, I had the ability to steal two bases to kind of make a name for myself in the essence, in front of that type of crowd. So that
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
That is incredible. So one of your Springfield teammates, Tink Hence, was also at the game. Can you tell us a little bit about Tink as a pitcher and what makes him so special?
Yeah, that dude is electric, man.
Yeah.
That's like the one word I can kind of put Tink in is just he's a really electric pitcher. He had like three plus real pitches
Mm.
that he's attacking hitters with, and he's controlling his own with. So when you have that, it's just you already throw really hard. So 96 to 8, 9. When you throw that hard already, and then you have like two other pitches that you're throwing off of that are really good too, it makes it hard. It makes it really difficult for a hitter to hit. So I would just say if I was the hitter, I would just say shorten up because he's got some good stuff. But outside of baseball, he's a really good person, man. Me and him actually have a pretty good connection because we'll go downstairs at this apartment or yeah, at these apartment complex. They have like a basketball gym in there, and we'll just go shoot around
Mm.
for hours for some reason. Don't ask me why we do it, but we just go shoot around in our off time sometimes. So just being with him, and then we were in Peoria, we were fishing together. So kind of like developing like that relationship has been pretty cool with that guy, man. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I also saw that you got to have a conversation with Vince Coleman at the Futures game as well. So tell us more about that as he's the last. I mean, he stole over 100 bases three different times in his major league career, stolen base king. So obviously there's some connections there. What all was that conversation like with Coleman?
Right. So it was the night before the Futures game, and it was like at like midnight.
Mm.
And then one of my a guy in my agency, Paul, he texted me and said, "Hey, Vince Coleman's down here. You want to talk to him?" I hopped out of bed so fast I can't even tell you what the time was on that. But I know I was downstairs in like the next 2 minutes because I was like, this is an opportunity that cannot be passed up upon. Like this guy's got so much information, so many things, like especially being in the Cardinals organization too. And
Yeah.
like doing the things that he did in the Cardinals organization was like even a better connection. So I talked to him just about like we talked a lot about getting like first steps and like really reading the pitchers. So like even when it's not your time to hit, or if say if I'm the leadoff guy and I make the last out of an inning, then I should be on that rail watching the pitcher's tendencies and trying to really gather something for my next at bat or for the at bats to come. So we talked a lot about like reading tendencies, about like swing decisions as a leadoff guy, like what should you be swinging at, like how to give your team the best opportunity to essentially win the game. I mean, because with like a guy like me, I'm not gonna hit the ball, but I can run into one every now and then. But like that's not my goal is not to hit a home run. Like I'm supposed to get on base, steal bases, create havoc for the defense, and then in turn the guy behind me gets a lot of fastballs because the catcher is. I mean, it's just easier to catch a fastball, receive, get it out, get it to second base, and it's a faster pitch. Pitchers are slowing down or they're speeding up to the plate. So instead of being like a 1-3 or 1-4, now he's a 1-1 or a 1-0. So that's like my whole goal as like a leadoff is just get on base and cause as much disruption as possible. So we talked a lot about that. And then also like how to get to 100 and then how to keep pushing. He was like, because essentially once you get to like a specific number, he was like, everybody knows who you are at that point, and the whole ballpark knows you're going to steal.
Yeah.
So how do you steal bases with everyone knowing you're going to steal? And that's kind of like what we went over. And then like even now, like to present day. So like I know that was like in the beginning of July. We still like kind of text back and forth, and like I'll send him some film, and he kind of gives me feedback on like, okay, maybe you can look at this, and maybe you can. I'm not going to say necessarily change this because obviously it's your career, but you can kind of look at this and try to make an adjustment here to get an even better step than you did in this video. So having that connection with him is super special to me. Both Vic and Vince names, so both V names is pretty cool too. So man, it's just awesome to have that correlation and connection with a guy who's been in the organization and who has had success at stealing bases as well.
Yeah, that is incredible. So tell us more about like how do you prepare to steal a base now that every time you get on base, everyone knows you're probably going to try and steal one. Like what is going through your mind? What are the things you're watching for a pitcher? How do you trying to not manipulate the rules, but use the new rules to your advantage? What are some things that are going through your mind when you're trying to steal a base when you're in the 60s? Like people know you're going to.
Yeah, it's more or less just like picking your spots of when to run. So like sometimes I'll do like a fake steal and just try to see like what the defense does in reaction to me stealing. So like who covers the bag is also important. Because if the second baseman doesn't get there in time, then he's trying to come. So like if I'm sliding in this way, he's going to come from this angle. So normally the shortstop comes from that angle because he's always behind the bag and like that double play depth. Or just really like reading the pitcher as well, like prior to. It's almost like doing your homework. I always go like I know even at the past level, I will go talk to PA and go watch film on the pitchers and go talk to Casey as well. And then I know at this level, I go talk to Jose Lahair, and I just sit there and we talk about like, is the pitcher really quick? Does he like is he if he's a lefty, is he reading the move? Is he like reading me go? Like, what is his tendencies so I can get the best jump possible? Because essentially, once I'm gone and committed, then I'm trying to be safe. So I'm gonna go in there as hard as I can at the back of the bag and just head first slide, just try to be safe at that point. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned that 100 stolen base goal. I know you've mentioned in the past, you said it today. You're at 68 right now. I believe you have 41 games left to go in AA right now. Do you think you're gonna reach the goal this year?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have like a 10 game. Let's see, whatever 100 minus 68 is. Not good at quick math, but whatever that is, I know it's not 41. So the goal now is just to try to steal one base a game, and then hopefully I'll get there in the long run. And of course, if I can steal 2 or 3, and 2 thumbs up. So
totally.
The goal is still to get to 100, but of course we'll kind of see how the season plays out. If it's not in God's design order, then hey, so be it. We'll get it next time. But the goal is to definitely still 100.
Well, for listeners, Victor is second in all of minor league baseball in stolen bases. There's someone within the Rays organization that has like 80, so maybe you can catch up to him as you go through as well. Something I'd like to talk to you about is your approach at the plate as well. You talked about how you're going to run into a few home runs along the way, but for the most part, you stay within yourself as a hitter. I've seen some bunt singles from you. I see you hit the ball the other way. You have a low strikeout rate, high walk rate. Like, what is your approach at the plate looking like?
My approach at the plate is pretty much to just hunt my hot maps. So basically,
Mm,
what that means is what pitches am I good at hitting early in the count, and then of course when you get to two strikes, you kind of have to battle up at that point so it can
yeah.
be as short as possible. So I'm not like a big leg kick guy. I don't have like a lot of movements in my swing. I just try to be as simple as possible and try to just repeat putting the barrel on the ball. Sometimes I don't get the barrel to the ball and I still have like a good plane on my swing. So it helps me in that aspect to kind of drop one in, before the outfielders and after the infielders. So it kind of helps me to do that sometimes.
Mm,
Or my speed will play if I chop one and then I can really try to beat it out. But the whole like kind of ideal is just for me to hit line drives. So if I can hit a line drive right in front of the outfielder, it's a win for me because that's my goal. And that's like kind of what the organization sees me as doing. Now, if I catch it just a little bit more and then it gets in the gap, now we're talking doubles and triples, which is also a super big component in my game. So I would just say the whole approach thing is just to try to be like a leadoff guy, see pitches when needed to see it. But if it's in my hot map, I will swing. So that's
mm,
why, like a lot of people are asking me, like, why are you so aggressive as a leadoff? I'm aggressive because it's a fastball in my hot map, and I love that.
mm.
Or it's just a pitch that I can see myself handling. So that's kind of like the approach, and just like to kind of put it into like a bowl. It's basically just to hit a line drive back up the middle of the field.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
something that kind of popped in my head as you were talking too is I don't know how many times you've stolen third this year, but I feel like that's something that people always kind of wonder, like what goes through a base stealer's mind and like when you decide to steal third of all bases. Do you have a mentality behind that? Is it something the pitcher's doing situational? I'm sure it's a combination of the things, but what is it like for stealing second's one thing, but stealing third's a little bit more difficult. What does that look like for you?
So so kind of like from the outside eye, stealing second seems easier.
Hmm.
Stealing third is actually the easiest.
Interesting. Why would you say that?
So stealing third, it's the pitcher is I haven't heard of a pitcher who's really comfortable with picking off to second.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then it's also hard, like with me, I kind of like read moves. So like
Mm,
as you're picking up your foot, like I can tell if you're gonna like inside move where you'll pick it up and then kind of like place that foot over the rubber and then try to get me that way, or you'll do a turn. Because
hmm,
normally you do or pitchers kind of do something different. So a lot of pitchers are like creature of habits. So like
hmm.
they'll not necessarily like kind of repeat their movements, or sorry, they'll repeat their movements, and then if they don't repeat their movements, something weird is going on.
Yeah.
So sometimes guys will on second especially, there'll be like a one look or two look guy. So if the mound is this way and then the
Hmm,
second base is this way, they'll look here and they'll look at you,
hmm,
and then they'll boom. Sometimes they turn as they're turning, they'll pick up and pitch, or they'll lock back in on home plate and then they'll pitch.
hmm.
So a lot of times they'll do things like that. So I kind of just am able to read. All right, so what is he doing? And by the way, it's like prior to, so I already know what he's doing before I even get out there on the field. So
Yeah.
when I happen to do get if I have the chance to do get on second, then I know, okay, when he turns his head, like as he's turning his head, he's picking up his foot. So I can essentially just go as soon as he's doing this,
Yeah.
and then I'll end up getting a better jump than I would on first, because on first it's kind of like if you do it like that, it's like a real gamble. So like,
Hmm.
but normally I just go like when they pick up their foot on first, but there you can almost like vault and you can be totally safe.
Wow, that's super interesting to note. So we'll be expecting to see you try to steal. I guess second, if you once you steal second, third is pretty easy from there. So we'll be watching for that for sure. So something I think is really interesting is preseason. You were ranked toward like the bottom 20s of most prospect lists. It really depended on who you're looking at. Baseball America has you up at number 5 in the Cardinals organization now. MLB.com hasn't re-upped their rankings yet, but surely you're going to rise up the ranking. So what do you think you've shown this year that's caught the eye of talent evaluators around the league?
Consistency.
Hmm.
It's I would definitely say it's like hard to be consistent throughout like a long season, especially for someone who just came from college.
Yeah.
But with like the kind of like with like my mind and like the mentality behind it is just like take it day by day. So I'm not looking at it by months because months turns it makes it seem really, really long. So I kind of just take everything day by day and just try to get the most out of each day. So rather that be like having a conversation, like not even like on the baseball side, but like rather that mean like having a conversation with someone who I don't normally talk to, or rather that be like doing something different in the cage, or having a conversation with the hitting coordinator, or not the hitting coordinator, but the hitting coach. Just doing something different to try to get the most out of each day and try to build new connections. So that way it's not seeming as long of a season for me.
Yeah.
And then kind of just finding like a good routine. That's like been a big component and kind of I guess my success is because I know now what my swing is doing, because I mean all the work that I put in the off season with like the hitting coordinators and my hitting coach at home, and even my bunting coach at home. I put in a ton of work, so I think I should know it like what I'm doing for the most part. Of course, there's still more development to be had, but for the most part, I do know like what I'm doing in that aspect. So just kind of having like a routine that I can go by every day to kind of make the days kind of flow by instead of it being like a rocky day where it's just like, man, this day is just taking forever. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of your development, you talked earlier about how you're not necessarily looking to run in or to hit some home runs or do stuff like that. Is there anything you're looking to add to your game as a player as you're progressing through the levels, or are you more focused on just getting really good at what you're good at and being the best version of who you are right now?
right. So it's kind of like that's a good question. It's you're trying to be like the best person or the best player that you are right now. So you're trying to still develop who you are, but you do, as you kind of progress, want to add different elements to your game that haven't been there before. So that
Yeah.
kind of makes your push just a little bit greater. Um, but I know like one thing I really want to work on when I go back home is like the strength at contact. So like how well am I powering through balls? And then kind of like I know like how to do that because I was working on that a lot in Peoria with Casey Chenoweth. But it's just that's gonna be like the next step for me is just all right. So these balls that you're just hitting in front of the outfielders, like how can we get that over their head for extra base hits? Because it's still a line drive approach, but now the extra strength behind that will kind of get that ball to the wall or get that ball over the wall on a line, which is even more impressive. So that's kind of like the next step, I feel like, for my game. And of course, the speed will always be worked on, the power output as well. So that's definitely the next step.
Yeah. I don't know how you could articulate this well, but if you can, that'd be great. I think fans get a little bit weary sometimes when they hear of like high contact hitters trying to develop power. They're like, oh, what are they doing? They're going to mess up their swing. They're going to ruin what they're good at. How do you continue to get better at powering through the baseball, having that line drive approach, adding power to the game, but still getting on base at a high clip?
So it's the same swing, but kind of like developing more parts of your body that could make your strength at impact stronger. So I would say like hand strength is a big one, wrist strength is also a big one, forearm strength. And then of course like still developing power like in your body as well. So core, legs, that's super huge, back strength. Um, it's just developing that. Like I would say like I do not want to change my swing from where it is right now. So I'm not going to try to now, all right, now that I got power, I need to try to lift the ball because that's not who I am. So I still want to try to hit those line drives, but like kind of working on those things in the off season and really putting in that like that extra time is going to help me kind of see those benefits in the long run of the next season to come.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Well, as we're wrapping up a little bit, speaking on your behalf, I think it's crazy that fans and media don't talk about you more. I mean, you look at like a Baseball America, they have you rated 2++ tools with your speed and your fielding, which that alone makes you a valuable player going forward in center field. but then you're also at least above average in multiple other areas. They see you as a potential 5-tool player. What is it about your game that you think will help, like the Cardinals, for example, at the big league level in the future? How do you see yourself helping teams win games as you progress in your career?
So kind of like what I said before is just creating or getting on base and just creating havoc for like those guys behind me. So, like I said, like when I'm on base, normally they slide step, and with slide steps they throw fastballs at
Mm,
this level at least. So I'm assuming they'll be a little bit better at like controlling the running game at the higher levels, but at least they'll still get pitches in the zone to handle and then drive me in because essentially if they hit a ball to the wall, my thought is going to be to score.
yeah.
So then that helps them get their RBI count up, and then that also helps me get my runs scored up. So it's kind of like a win-win, and now we're winning ball games because of the amount of runs that are being produced, as well as on defense is just being able to communicate with like off outfielders, and then also just the speed in general helps me get to the ball, and then also help back up other off outfielders as well. So that's kind of like what I bring to that,
Yeah.
what I'll bring to the table as I get to the upper levels for sure.
Yeah. Well, as we're wrapping up, you've told us you bring music to the table. So what is it again? How can we find your music on, you said it was on
It's
Apple?
it's Argo, ARGO, and then it's Right My Wrongs, like WRITE, My Wrongs. And it should be a picture of like a lamp and a notepad, and then that's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to give it a listen after this. Well, Victor, it was a pleasure to chat today. Seriously, thank you for your time. You're exactly the kind of player that Cardinal fans will fall in love with when you make it to St. Louis. And there's no doubt that you're on your way to doing that. Good luck with the rest of your season, the quest for 100 bases. I'm sure you're going to get there. Hopefully, we can talk again soon and possibly see you in St. Louis in the near future.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, this has been Redbird Rundown, your host, Josh Jacobs. Thanks again to Victor for being on, and I'll catch you next time.
All right.